computer.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. Third time's a charm, right?
That's right. So, did you get your internet stuff worked out?
Yes.
Good.
It's been crazy all across the state. It's on fire. Like Idaho's on fire. So, um, it's been interfering with our data stream. And we don't have Wi-Fi here because where I live, the Wi-Fi just sucks. So we are tethered to our data off our cell phones. I don't know where my cat, of course, my cat starts in right now yowling. Can you hear him yowling?
No,
I hope not. Sorry.
no, it's not good.
It's just right. He hasn't said a word all day, but now suddenly he's like, I want dinner right now. So, son, will you help me out and hook up the cat? Peanut. Anyway, so there's been fire, and due to all the fire, we've just had crazy internet. I mean, 20 minutes on, 40 minutes off for 6 days straight. And that's what happened last time we were talking. Just that was it. And I didn't get back online for another like 40 minutes. So, yay for you. You kept on going and made it a really cool show. I liked your monologuing afterwards. I don't know if you
Oh,
read the email I sent you. I sent you a little, you sent me a little, well, you sent me the show,
yeah,
and then I commented. Did you read what I said about the grass is greener generation? Because you were talking about how you want A, and then
yeah.
if A
That's
happens,
it.
you find yourself wanting B. Yeah, I call
Yeah,
it the grass is greener thing. Yeah. So
that must be our
anyway, it was a
generation.
good, it was a good monologue.
Oh, thanks. I expected any minute for you to hop back on, so I was just extemporizing, but thank you for listening.
I was sitting here hoping, well, I didn't get to listen to it until you sent me the show because the moment I went off, there went my cell phone, there went my data. It was, about an hour before so I was, of course, bummed because we were right on a roll.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to just pick right up because I was trying to talk about the memory wiping that happens. We can
Yeah.
go back there, or where would you like to start?
No, that's exactly. I think a lot of people are interested in what goes on when you forget something. Uh, what
Absolutely.
every night we forget our dreams. It happens
Yes.
on a daily basis. You wake up, there was this vivid dream, it seems so real, and then all of a sudden you're in your day and things are happening. You're getting ready for work. But
Yes.
it does feel like that scene in Men in Black when Agent when Will Smith holds up the light and clicks
Yep.
the thing,
Yep.
and all of a sudden everyone can't remember. And we talked in a previous show about, I don't think I posted it, but about Westworld, how
Yes.
that that doesn't look like anything to me, right?
Yep. It doesn't look like anything to me.
Yeah,
And I think that's exactly what's happening here because we are crippled by the real narrow band of our five senses. We're literally, we have governors like they do on a car that limits and restricts our abilities. And so um our eyes are restricted to the Roy G. Biv. We cannot see on the ultraviolet on the lower end, or on the infrared on the other end, like other like bees and butterflies see over in UV, and snakes see, in infrared, just for example. So I mean, and we learned this as a kid, right? We learned that dogs have a better nose than us, and all these things, but it's much deeper than that. Speaking of programming, I think the show, have you ever watched Dark Mirror, or I mean Black Mirror?
oh yeah, it's one of my favorites. Yeah,
Yes, me too. The 5 seasons. So you probably recall in the fifth season, the show that Miley Cyrus starred in, that episode where she's a rock star, right?
hmm
And that was a massive amount of truth in that episode.
she's like
What
a
they
MK
did
Ultra.
was,
Let me just see if I remember
yes,
right. So she's like an MK Ultra
perfect.
mind
Yes.
control slave, right? And she's
Yes.
the daughter of some prominent rock star. country star maybe.
Yes.
Um, and
Well, and
her relative is trying to get control of her catalog, right? Is that it?
100%. And she kind of um that is the episode that really coincides to the Donald Marshall narrative because they even steal her music in her dreams when she's sleeping.
Right.
And it also showed how she could be thinking a very angry song, just rah, and so the relative who is stealing the music from her says, okay, slow it down, slow the tempo down, take it up an octave, blah blah blah. Pretty soon it's fairly fairly decent melody. And
Mm,
so that's what's happened with some of the kind of more screamish music that's come out of Donald's mouth. They'll just take it down a little higher up, give it to a female to sing. Although sometimes he just does it in one take and they take it in exact key in the exact way. But back to that show. So they showed how Miley Cyrus had some dolls made in her image, right? The
right.
the little remember the little dolls, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they asked her about that. How does it how does it talk like you and act like you? And she said a very telling thing, I think, a massive sort of truth drop in which she said, well, it would be too much to try to just parcel out into all these dolls. There were like 100,000 dolls sold. So what they did was clone her consciousness exactly, put it in all those dolls. But then what they did is they put a fence around it, a governor, exactly
Mhm.
what I'm talking about, exactly what Donnie talked about, where all the dolls are restricted to that little fenced in area. So they're only going to interact on that area. Well, that's how she ended up defeating that relative was because a fan came and drug her out of the house. She was all drugged and all this. And they found the fan had a doll, right?
Right.
So Miley knew about the tech. So she removes the governors from the doll's
Uh,
brain. I'm going to say brain cognition. So then the doll had all the same capabilities that the actual original OG consciousness did. And in
okay.
that manner, that's how they were able to step her back into reality in that way. And that is exactly what they do here during the daytime. They'll clone a consciousness and say they clone you, Joe. You're at work, you're doing your thing, you have
Hmm.
no idea. But it's not just your body is cloned, your consciousness can be cloned exactly, and they can transfer that into either an actual physical like clone of you or a younger version of you or an older version of you or what they call a homunculus, which is a very small version of you, or just transfer your consciousness into like a VR scenario.
Uh-huh.
So you won't know what that exact copy of your consciousness is doing unless later in the day they allow the original you to have that uploaded in. And Donnie talked about this many years ago. He said, like, for example, some of the royalty and some of the other folks, they have multiple copies of their consciousness in different places and spaces in this level of the realm all day long. And then at night, all of their memories are uploaded from the other versions of themselves. Say another version of them is I don't know, a teacher somewhere or whatever. So they get all of that uploaded.
Hmm.
That's the level of the tech. And that episode of Black Mirror explains it very well as far as the abilities. Also, I think I mentioned in my four-part series, I was talking about how the show on Apple, Severance, where the person has their day consciousness and that is their work. And then they go in an elevator and they leave and they have their evening consciousness. And the two don't interact at all. So the main character is a guy who just lost his wife. She died. So he wants half of his day to not remember that. So
Hmm.
he goes through and he'll in the evening he lives his day. He has no access to what happens during his work day, and his work self has no idea who he is out of there. And they show it, the tech in an elevator. He goes in the elevator when he comes to work,
Mm.
goes up, bing. So from the work person's perspective, he never leaves work. Never. He goes in the
Oh,
elevator to leave for the day. And
okay.
from his perspective, ding, it opens back up again and he's back for another day. So think of the prison that is for the workday portion of the consciousness. So anyway, um these are just pieces of consciousness that they're showing this technology in different programming that we've seen over the last 10 years, which corroborates exactly what Donnie told us about back in 2011. So
So
hopefully that explains it better.
it does a couple things. One,
Sure.
starting from most recent and going back, the elevator is uh, Lucifer, right? We're not going to let the elevator
Yes.
break us down. That's one of,
The L,
yeah,
E
yeah,
L. Yes. The L, the elite. Yes.
yes, elevator. The other thing was about Black Mirror. Um, I have to watch that episode with Miley Cyrus again because you brought in a level of detail that I just wasn't remembering, especially the resolution of the episode. But
Yes.
it seems like this crowd of people can they think of our consciousness as something that we can play with like that. Like, oh, if you could just upload your consciousness to a mainframe and live eternity in a virtual world.
100%.
It's not like a soul. It's like something that could be a silica life form or a carbon-based life form. They're, it's funny how
And it
it seems
is.
like they think of
Yes.
it that way, right?
Yes, and they do. I was told at one point when my consciousness was transferred about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was quizzing one of the scientists that I often end up talking to in these situations, and he told me that one of the ways that these beings make it through these resets in our realm is they can hide in things like statues. Literally, they can change the chemical makeup of the statue to be a host for their consciousness. And the statue can be like a natural Faraday cage. So
Hmm.
when the plasma is rocking and rolling and the realm is resetting and, et cetera, they can hide not just in a deep underground military base somewhere, which they can do that too, but in cases where the shit goes down pretty quickly, especially back in the day, they could hide in structures that we may not think are as malleable, like that. It's like really difficult to imagine, my consciousness is going to be blended in with like a stone statue or something, or metal, but that's what he told me. So, yeah, I think you're correct. They can they for the consciousness is there is no restriction.
Hmm.
And, Donnie's told lots of stories about some of the elite, the elite, and what they get up to. And he said, some of them will transfer their consciousness, a clone of their consciousness, so one copy, into, say, a younger version of themselves. Say they're aging and they want to feel what it's like to be in that younger body again and whatever. And then they'll just go on a debauchery tour, even in our level of the realm. They're not in cloning, they're just like, he described one individual who loved getting her consciousness transferred into a younger version of herself, and then she would just go on what he said, a basically a slutty tour where she would fuck her way through like 10 different guys and bars, and then end it in a big bang 10 days later, that like either shooting herself or someone else in the process. Then of course that would be have to be covered up by local authorities and whatnot, because it's really not explainable. Like, who is this person who is lying here dead with no ID or whatever? So they
That
go on
wasn't
these little escapades.
that wasn't Carrie Fisher. Carry.
No, I don't think,
Okay.
no, it was one of the royalty. He
Oh,
talked
okay.
about one of the royalty loved to do that. But that is how they've taken him during the day. During the daytime, when he's not in REM, you can just clone the consciousness and transfer it into a clone. There's Mark II, what he calls Mark II. For whatever reason they're called Mark, like MARK, Mark One, Mark Two, Mark Three. Mark II clones are only available in the cloning center, and those are the ones that host your consciousness during REM sleep. But the Mark III and Mark IV can host the consciousness on this level of the realm. Doesn't have to be in a deep underground military base like cloning. And you could go for what he called field trips or day trips. And
Hmm.
he's written many songs about these like day trips of,
The
what
like the
happened
what
during the
about the
day.
song what about the song Day Tripper from the Beatles? It-
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't know whether he wrote that one or not. I mean, he's been, he told me directly, that music had been put back in the 70s and the 60s and whatnot. And just the other day, he posted a song that was supposedly written in 1954.
Whoa.
And when he posts a song, that is him saying, look, I wrote this. So, I commented, I put a double heart, and then he put a heart on that because he knows that I know that, what he is saying.
Huh.
So, yeah, his music has been placed all the way back, and I addressed this in part 4 of my series, and talked about different music that I speculate have been placed in the 60s and the 50s, absolutely from the 50s forward. He's had a lot to do with what we would think, doo-wop music of the 50s, the counterculture music in the 60s, things that it's difficult to fathom, but once you start hearing it and listening, you can hear all the little Donnyisms, which I talk about at great length across the 8 or 9 hours of my presentation
Yeah.
to sort of train your ear. But his music has been that's why he wrote the song Centuries. I think who did that? Fall Out Boy, or I don't know. You'd have to look it up. But the song Centuries, it was, it's talking about, they'll be talking about me for centuries.
Hmm.
Yeah, because we have been, literally, for
So
decades and centuries.
I was trying to imagine what it might be like to be in Donnie's shoes, and I was
Mm,
thinking like, does a song maybe comes on the radio, and he
yep.
has this sensation like, I know what they're gonna say next because he
Oh,
wrote.
yeah, he did. Now, for the first 30 years of his life, he didn't know he wrote this stuff. But they removed the governors on his 30th birthday. He was born September 30th. And so in September 30th, on his 30th birthday, on the day of the 30th, they love their numbers. That'd be a 3
Mhm.
3 because you get rid of the zeros, right? So
Right.
it's all occulted. Um, he they began to give him his memories back, but it had to be a slow rollout over a few months because when you start to be given these memories back, and I can attest to this personally, you get what's called pain echoes, and you re-experience this. And so, they've hurt him so many times in so many ways, and so they had to very kind of carefully and delicately remove the governors and allow him to remember all those years, 26 years of his life, where his nights were not at all what he thought he was just going to sleep the way we would. But yeah, as far as the music, he doesn't like to listen to the radio. He's said this a lot
Mm.
because it just brings up a lot of negative memories, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that he enjoys listening to the most is classical music because that's the stuff he's had the least to do with because it's farther back. Although some of his music has been placed back, like Beethoven-ish era.
Mm. Wow.
So Yeah, like all the way back. Stuff that it's difficult for us to understand, like Beethoven in the 1700s, the early 1800s, Eric Satie in 1888. These are things that um Donnie wrote. But what you're talking about more is what happened to him when they began to wake him up, which I think I addressed in part 3 of my series, where he wakes up, he just went to bed in Nova Scotia. Life is normal. He's 30 years old. He wakes up and he's in this weird concourse area with his roommate is there, the person he lives with in Nova Scotia, and they walk him out. He says, "Come on with me, Don." And Donnie's like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, where am I?" And he's like, "Just come with me." And he goes out and they walk him out in a darkened arena, and he's looking around. There's hundreds of people there, at least 200, 300. It's packed. It's an arena, dirt floor, and he can't see their faces, but then the light kind of comes up a little bit, and he's looking at all these people staring at him, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I am fucked." He just had this sense of foreboding and evil, and all of a sudden the beginning of Welcome to the Jungle starts playing really loud, and that's like a 50 to 60, almost a minute, 50-second to a minute intro. It's long, the
Yeah, yeah.
guitars and this building and building. And so Donnie, just being Donnie, he was like, fuck, I am fucked. And so he just he just has this sort of spirit about him. So he's like, fuck it. So he just started playing air guitar, wailing on the air guitar, head banging, just like, whatever. And so he's out there and he's like, "Welcome to the jungle," dancing around. And then all of a sudden, the music stops and someone says, "Don't you? You remember?" And he's like, "I remember nothing. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't, what is going on?" And then someone else says, "You are very special." And he's like, "What?" And then he wakes up in his own bed at home. Just
Uh,
boom, they shut him off there, and he woke up and he's like, "Oh my God, what was that?" And but you're right. All those years he had been listening to the radio, and he didn't know that he had been writing all of that all along, although it seemed extremely familiar to him. And he would have moments where it would just feel bizarre to
hmm,
him.
hmm.
But yeah, I hear you though. It's an interesting thing to try to put yourself in those shoes, to try to even imagine. But like I was saying right before we got cut off before, frankly, I think all of us have a lot of memories in these spaces and places. It's just been removed from us. I'm not saying that we're all making music and, but we're definitely being utilized in different ways.
How
All
about
of us that are real souls.
so on a personal level, do you have any songs that frequently come to mind unbidden that you think like maybe you have a connection with in that same way that Donnie does?
I have songs that I feel like I do have one memory of being present watching him create a song back in the 80s. Um, but yes, throughout my life, there has been certain songs that just have been inexplicable in my life. And now, uh, with some of my memories re re I don't know what you would want to call it, re-given to me, or I've been allowed to have these memories back. I realized that either I was there or it's linked to me in certain ways. Even my name is in one of them, literally. So yes,
Oh, now I'm trying to think of, is it a uh Allman Brothers band song? No, no, no. Who is it? Clapton.
nope,
Santana? No, no.
nope. I'll tell you that story
Okay. All
off
right.
air, because I don't like there's actually two or three songs. There's one song that I was told in a space in a place that is directly related to how they have utilized me. And if you've seen my previous interviews, you know about the sort of nocturnal emission thing, the Kundalini energy, and that's what they were
Yeah.
have been harvesting off of me my whole life. And there is a song that directly you'll get it when I tell you it. You'll be
Oh
like,
wait.
okay, yeah. And
Um,
yeah.
there is a Little Feat song, I think, with your name in it. Do you know Little Feat?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that one is, but I do know that there's for sure two songs that I'm linked to. Um it's crazy. And then that's the weirdest part is that when I started being aware of this material back in 2013, I I felt like he was telling the truth because there were so many memories related to my own experiences that I've had at night. And he seemed very familiar, but I had not been given my memories specific to him and those spaces and places back yet.
Hmm.
So I wasn't trying to write myself into the Donald Marshall narrative, and I'm still not. I
Yeah.
think that those of us who are real souls, that would be you and me, and I believe we're a minority here. Um, we are all like I was saying with Hunter and Chris in the Melt interview. I
Hmm.
was saying we are all utilized for something specific. We're not special in that all of us are being utilized. So it's not like, I'm so special or you're so special. We are, but we are unique in that every one of us has something that's unique that they're interested in. More, like with Donnie, they're interested in his music, but he's done so much for them. He's given them movie ideas, and he's even choreographed dance routines. He's written intros for tons of TV shows, like he wrote the intro to South Park. I mean, he's Kenny. Oh my God, they killed Kenny over and over and over. That's the Donald Marshall character who dies at the end of every episode, but comes back to life.
Huh.
So that's the Donald Marshall, and there are references to Donnie everywhere in popular culture.
So
I mean, literally everywhere.
this is going to be a multi-part question, but
Go for it.
this is something I've wondered about with South Park specifically because those guys went to school in Boulder.
Yeah, they did.
I'm
That's
yeah,
right.
six
Yeah.
degrees of separation. I kind of know the sister of one of their animation director.
Ooh.
So she was my
Okay.
Spanish teacher when I was in eighth grade, and she brought in a little
Habla
VH.
español.
Yeah, she was cute too.
Oh,
Professor
right
Sao.
on.
Yeah. And she brought in a videotape of their debut, their premiere. Um,
Oh, okay.
where they're trying to get
The
the
one
show.
about Mr. Pooh,
I
the
think
Mr.
what
Pooh
it's
thing.
called.
Yeah,
I think it was called Cartman Gets an Anal Probe.
I think so. It was something
Yeah,
about poop somehow. I remember their original thing. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a safe bet. But she made us go home and get a waiver signed so she could show the tape in class. She said, if everybody gets a waiver signed, I can show it in class. And my sister, who was in class with me, she swiped the VHS. She stole it.
Oh, wow. Go
Yeah.
sis.
Yeah, and she kept it for a long time, and she was going on some swim trip, and somebody was asking for if anybody brought VHS cassette tapes for the bus ride, and she puts that one in and shows the whole swim team.
Oh my God.
The
Go
coach
sis.
the coach looked at my mom and because she was my mom was also a coach and said, "What's wrong with you? Why did you show this?" My mom had no idea, but she's
Right.
a South Park fan. Anyway, that's a meaningless tangent, but sorry to take us off
That's
topic.
all right. It's
Um,
all good.
just fun story.
Yeah, they oh, go ahead.
We just love South Park. And the question was that I had for you was, do you think that these uncreative types that are harvesting our loosh and maybe harvesting our ideas and our dreams and our poetry,
Yeah. Yes.
maybe that it might backfire on them because I would think of them as being kind of an authoritarian class that wants
Mm?
people to be subjugated, and yet here Donnie
Yes.
is who has a more libertarian anarchist spirit, and if
Yep.
he's the one that's inspiring shows like South Park, then the product that comes out of that would be a more anarchist
More of us.
libertarian
Yeah.
message. Yeah. What do you think of
Oh,
that?
I think I think that's spot on. I think they've tried to crush his spirit, and it's made him even more of that libertarian sort of anarchist spirit and pro-human. And as far as South Park, it is full of all kinds of references. You remember the crab people who,
Yeah.
I mean, that's they're talking about the Vril. They're even drawn the way the Vril look with the little antenna on the eyes and that's
Uh-huh.
what they named it that because since Donnie was a little boy, he called the Vril the crab nasties because they reminded him somewhat with their sort of oddly shaped body as like a crab, and they have eyes on stalks. So he called them crab nasties. So that's where that idea came from.
Interesting. Did you
There
ever
are many, many episodes with Donnie related storylines.
did you ever see the episode where there's these I think it's called Soapbox Derby Racer or something like that.
Hmm.
Pine
I
Derby
don't know.
Racer, and Randy and Stan are trying to build a derby racer. So Randy
Okay.
dresses up like Princess Leia and goes to CERN to steal
Okay.
some antimatter and put it in the Pine Box Derby Racer. And the thing
Nice.
takes off down the track and then shoots into the atmosphere and breaks the the light speed. It breaks light speed. So they're
Nice.
borrowing a little bit from a Star Trek movie, I think. But
Sure.
so then
Yeah.
it calls down this alien in a craft, and then the alien says, "Hey, I've got all this space cash, and you guys need to like keep it safe." And then then he takes off. So the humans take all the space cash. It's absurd, right?
Okay.
And they hide the space cash
Right.
and they use it to revitalize Mexico. And so now Mexico is like a beautiful place with water slides and tourist parks. Uh,
Olay.
and
Very
then
cool.
the next group of
I
eight.
didn't see this one.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. So I won't spoil it for you. But
No, I didn't.
there's okay, so
Well, it sounds fun. Yeah.
it is, but there's another group of aliens come down that says, "Hey, we're tracking this space bandit, and he left all this space cash here. You guys didn't see it, did you?" And the whole town covers for him because they stole it.
I'm sure they do. Yep.
So it turns
That
out that
sounds fun. I mean, yeah,
they were all in cahoots. The bandits, the
they were
cops,
all in
space
cahoots.
cops. They were testing humans to see if humans were ready to join this galactic alliance,
Ah, I see.
and the humans failed miserably.
Well, no surprise there, right? As a whole,
Yeah,
the the consensus majority is going to fail miserably. Just look at COVID. So, I mean, they just are going to fail. But
yeah.
yeah, South Park's from the beginning, it was Donald, sorry, I got it here in my Donnie Donnie wrote the theme song and he worked with them in the beginning with the ideas, and that's how come there's Kenny who gets killed and who the kids are almost like blasé about it. They're like, oh my God, we killed Kenny again. Because that's what happens with Donnie, because they've killed him so many times. And the people sitting in the stands, they all the clones have indwelling dispensers where they're built into them, where there is the ability to give them like a shot of a pleasurable drug like an opiate, like heroin.
Like
So when
Soma,
Donnie is being like a soma, but specifically heroin, or a more like liquid high grade heroin. So when they're out hurting Donnie, everyone in the stands gets a shot of from endogenous indwelling heroin, so that it's paired, his pain is paired with their pleasure.
Huh.
And that is just one thing that they do in order to keep everyone there from trying to stand up for him and keep all of them rooting for him to be hurt every night because it means that their clone gets a shot of heroin or other drugs like that. And
So
that continues to this day. Yeah.
so he's like a little bit like Truman in the Truman Show in these
He's a hundred
situations.
percent like Truman. They have an indwelling chip near his right eye where
Hmm.
they can see what he sees 24/7.
Yeah.
And and I don't know if you've seen like look at the channel Look Out for Charlie, Look Out for FA. Have you heard of Look Out for Charlie?
Uh-uh. Is it good?
Okay, oh yeah. He's on YouTube and he's been doing some really good work for the last maybe 7, 8 years. He's a sound guy, a sound person who for years has been doing recordings like in empty rooms. He started off in the music industry, sort of not on a higher level, but just bands and whatnot. So got into the technology behind musical sound mixing.
Huh.
And then he kind of, for a while, was interested in the phenomenon of poltergeisting and things like that. People trying to measure the electromagnetic spectrum in haunted houses and whatnot. So he's
Yeah.
developed a lot of technology to be able to listen. And what he has found is absolutely mind blowing. He has found that we live in some sort of, we live, it would be kind of like a technological overlay. I don't know if there's an actual dome over us, but there is a technological overlay over us in which all of us are monitored 24/7, always. We
Yeah.
are swimming in a type of plasma. We can't see it because, again, back to those governors on our senses and our eyes, ears, etc. But we are literally swimming in a type of plasma, and what they can do using scalar technology is honing in on where we are. They can open up literally a window from any place in the room at any point and observe us, the class of they, whoever is monitoring us in this joint. But so we're all being monitored in that way, but Donnie is also being monitored from the chip. So not only can they watch him that way, they can see what he's seeing a
Hmm.
100%. So he's sort of more than Truman. He is being monitored, and they have an indwelling chip near his right eye.
So this is, I gotta ask this. If
Of
these
course.
people, if these people get off on Donnie's misery, um,
Yes.
how does their reaction to pleasure and joy and exuberance?
Well, I can answer that in two ways. One kind of from what Donnie has said about that, and one kind of from what I've observed with what memories I have from the different transfers of my consciousness over the years. And what I would have to say, what Donnie would have to say is that they do not engage in any kind of what we would call a more positive emotional experience, loving someone, having attachment, because they start very, very young doing the MK Ultra and the sexual abuse and all of this, even in the womb sometimes, electroshocking the mother, etc. So they are raised to be in what we would call a negative vibrational state from the beginning.
Hmm.
So I know Donnie would say that they're literally incapable of our not only our imagination, but our empathy, our ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes or to perspective take someone else's pain. They are literally devoid of that. And therefore, well, now we're over in what I've observed, and him too as well. They would score, off the charts in sociopathy. They're not just psychopaths. There's sociopaths too, in which they lack um all ability to have empathy. Now, I think they have paired pain, much like someone who's interested in like S&M, sadomasochism, and sexuality. They have paired this debauchery and the negative sexuality and hurting and raping and abusing, sodomizing. They've paired that with like adrenochrome and other kinds of meds, opiates, etc., so much that it's classically conditioned together for them. So whatever joy they feel, joy, I'm going to air quote it,
Yeah.
whatever joy is going to be somewhere in that spectrum. So if we're looking at it on a chakra level, like your root chakra being at the base of your spine, and then your genitals and your stomach and all the way through your throat to your crown chakra, they have inverted the way it is supposed to be. What we are created to do is to express ourselves from the bottom up, which would be the Jacob's ladder, the 33 vertebrae, that would be our back, the Kundalini energy, all the way to the magenta purple crown, like in orgasm or other deeply meaningful, joyful experiences of love and compassion and caring and interconnectedness. But they have flipped that, inverted that, where they shut down their cognition, empathy, all of that, and they reside in the two lower chakra areas. So whereas we would want to live in the, Roy G. Biv, like the red, orange, yellow, Roy G. Biv,
Hmm.
we would want to aim to be in the Biv, in the violet indigo area, the blue, indigo, violet, blue, your throat, indigo, your your third eye, your the top, your crown, your purple, the purple, and but they're living in the red and the orange, and that is their joy. They
It
get
kind of
joy out of harm.
it kind of sounds
Yes.
like they live in the brown.
Yeah, kind of.
That chakra.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, they believe that um sodomy is a way to, sort of pop your pineal gland and to cause that orgasmic, and they don't want to get there through loving someone and being connected and making love with someone and orgasming together or whatever like that. They want to get there through sodomy
Hmm.
because it's quicker. Like they're gonna rape a kid and bam, it's gonna open up their third eye chakra according to them, because the prostate, etc. So that's why there's all the jokes in our realm about, everywhere you look, the portals everywhere. To them, there are actual portals. I mean, there are portals in our realm to other parts of this dimensional metaverse that we're in, but the vagina is a portal. We're all born out of a portal. If you look at the muscles in the vagina, they are striated and they are around like this. So we come through the water and out through the portal when we're born. But the anal canal is also a portal. It's a portal to those root chakras and the
Hmm.
causing of the sexual energy from the prostate being harmed in that way, and then pairing it with orgasm.
I have heard so many times about Aleister Crowley being kind of obsessed with anal sex.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why, especially with young boys,
Right.
because he felt that the purest way to tap that energy signature was a young boy before they went through puberty, so they weren't bothered with all those nasty puberty chemicals that were floating around in their body. They were more pure, and so he was very interested in harvesting that energy both metaphysically and literally.
Hmm. Yeah, that's troublesome, isn't it? It's like
Oh yeah. Yes.
um Orthodox Jews and certain very Orthodox sects of Christianity have this view of reproduction, as in sex and reproduction can't be decoupled. Like that's exactly what
Sure.
sex is for, and it's not for recreation at all. It's anything recreational, any orgasms that are had outside of intending to procreate
Right.
are sinful, right?
Or
And
wasteful.
or
Yeah.
wasteful, right?
They would look at it more as, I think, maybe more wasteful, that that's all that energy that you're giving away,
Right.
which is what pornography is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. And it
a
seems like
100%.
that's the main focus of it is like anything but reproductive sex, you know,
Yes,
in pornography. I've watched enough of it to know that that's kind of the trend. But
absolutely. Billions of people are giving away their energy and essence daily to their pornography habits.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's literally the biggest loosh harvesting in the world, because our strongest, or one of our strongest abilities in this avatar, is that kundalini energy, that that orgasmic energy. And um if you look all the way back to Gnostic texts, they're saying that if you waste that seed, or you waste that part of your energy in orgasm, then you're not only giving it away, sort of, you're reducing your own abilities physically, you're giving it away on an astral, or whatever word you want to use, metaphysical, in another, the spiritual realm,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
In a more esoteric way, where you're, you know, giving yourself instead of retaining and building your energy, which is what other types of spiritual practices teach, sort of
Right.
reducing, giving your seed away. And they mean that for females too. Yeah.
Isn't that a is that a big part of Taoism? I don't
Yes.
I don't think the Tao Te
100%.
Ching talks much about it, but I have heard that Taoism is there's scholars within Taoism that have concentrated on specifically that, like semen retention and control of
Yes.
the body in that way. And the only reference I can think of, because when I was like 12 years old, my parents, rather than having a personal talk with me, just handed me a James Dobson book. Do you know who that
Oh,
is?
really?
Yeah, and he's
Yeah, I
like
do. Wow.
the founder of
D
Focus on the Family, which is really big in the
right.
90s. And so
Yes.
I read the book, and there was
Okay.
a short chapter on self-pleasure and masturbation. And
Yes.
so I remember looking into that and just thinking like, okay, here I am, this kid that was at that time very concerned with being a good Christian. I went to
Sure.
Christian school. I had all these guilt complexes, and I wanted to get this question right. So I thought, surely James Dobson from the radio will tell me the right answer if I read his book.
Yep.
And
Amen, right?
his advice to Christians in regards to masturbation was this: the Bible is silent on the topic, except for in Genesis, there's a brief mention of one of Jacob's grandchildren, Judah's son named Onan. And
Okay.
Onan's brother died and left behind
Okay.
a widow. And Onan,
Okay.
as the surviving brother, had an obligation to take his brother's
Oh,
widow
to
as
marry.
a wife,
Okay.
even though he already had a wife of his own, right? So he
Sure.
thought, well, if I bring my brother's widow in on as a wife, then I'll have to divide my kids won't
Sexual
get
energy.
well, no, it was his kid's inheritance. He wanted his
Oh,
children to inherit his
okay.
wife's children to inherit all of his estate. And if he brings his
Okay.
brother's wife and gets her pregnant, then her children would have a fair claim
Okay.
to his estate. And I guess maybe he
Okay.
had a personal vendetta against this woman, but um, he he pulls out. As
Okay.
the story
I don't
goes,
remember this part in Genesis. Where
yeah,
is it in Genesis?
it would be
Like,
almost right
like
before the story of Joseph. It's towards the end. So Abraham,
it's got to
Isaac,
be towards the end. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Abraham, Isaac, and
Okay.
Jacob, and Jacob's son was the 12 tribes plus Joseph and his two
Right.
sons. So Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt, and then
Yes, he was.
there's
Yep.
like a 400-year period where there's really no
Yes.
story. So it jumps right from
No
Joseph
story.
all the way to Moses, and
Yes. Yes.
yeah. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
they yeah, handy. Just leave
Onan,
some stuff
he
out there.
kind of
So Onan,
little tricky.
yeah.
Onan was struck dead, like a lightning bolt strikes him because he spilled his seed on the ground. So he was supposed to
Oh,
come into um his brother's widow and give her children,
brother's widow.
but he thought he was
Okay.
clever, and so he pulls out. It's not like he was masturbating, but oftentimes masturbation,
No.
a synonym is onanism. So
Yes, it is.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Okay. The spilling of the seeds.
And
So,
so anyway, back to
So
James
what
Dobson.
was what did James tell your young self to do or not do? What was
So
the
I put down the book more confused than ever.
I'll bet that seems like okay, what does that mean, right? I'm
But
gonna get struck
essentially,
dead, right?
but
Right?
his advice to parents was to not exactly shame your children. Don't shame your children if you catch them doing this. But
Okay.
because it's really just strictly a Protestant Christian Catholic idea. It's not in the Bible. The
It's
Bible
not.
is
Yeah.
perhaps intentionally silent about that. Like you're gonna have to work this out on your own, you know?
Kind of like a bunch of stuff, right?
Kind of like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry to take off on that
Yeah.
tangent, but it seemed relevant.
No, that's fine. It is relevant. That, masturbation, Donnie says that that is what some of them will just do while he's being tortured. They're just sitting there at cloning, masturbating, females and males, because they have, the way he's described it, no sense of body shame or personal shame, or they're just, like I said, just extremely root chakra, lower chakra, pleasure oriented, just the hedonistic, your Dionysus, your Bacchus cults, all this stuff was just worshiping the five senses, what you can experience here in this avatar in the five senses, and then the repetition of that as many times as you can make it happen through sexuality, alcohol, drugs, any sort of mind change and physical pleasure. And then of course, just like with pornography and everything in life, you get pleasure here and then you draw the line in the sand and then that doesn't work anymore. I mean, I've done enough therapy with folks with pornography addiction. Okay, well, that's not working. So then they're move the line in the sand to here, a little bit more hedonistic, a little bit more debauchery, a little bit more what we would call kink. And then that doesn't work anymore. And then pretty soon you're clear over here in incest porn, bestiality porn, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're way over there in snuff child porn, which
Huh.
that could be said for every way we give ourselves away in this realm. You give a little to this realm and it will take much more back from you, which
Yeah.
is it not what is in Job, what was Satan doing? He was walking to and fro roaring like a lion. And
Huh.
that's exactly what the satanic or the negative energy, the it thing here is doing, taking. It's not giving ever. It's always taking.
So whether someone is a Taoist or a Confucianist, a Buddhist, a disciple of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, how is it that there's some people that are just able to break that karmic cycle and say, okay, I can see where this is leading. I need to quit this shit
Mm-hmm.
right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where, how does that happen across cultures?
Do you mean how do people break the cycle of violence and addiction across cultures? Is that
Yeah,
what you
I'm
mean?
wondering, because for me, the hardest part is to believe that there's some loving, benevolent god or group of gods that
Okay.
that send a
Would
soul to,
allow this.
well, no, more specifically, to send a soul to be incarnated into a bloodline where this is the practice, where this is the common
Sure.
practice. It
Yeah, I
seems,
think yeah, it's like that's sort of the bottom line of when you look around, how can this be?
yeah.
The only way I think it can be, if you want to, if we want to assume that we were created, or we could assume we've always been. We are eternal. We've always been and we always will be, because we are a part, a small spark of whatever divine creator. Something that maybe was full of imagination and empathy and all the things that make humans different, at least the real souls here, than what we would call the garden variety NPC, that seems to be more aligned with like the hive mind here. Um, so when you look at that, you'd wonder, well, what makes this so hard to swallow here, is that there's just, everywhere you look, this is a hard place to be. I mean, everything is a shit show all the way around, and the more veils you drop and the more you see, and the more you realize it's way worse than even the garden variety Christian thinks it is. I mean, we're being raped in our sleep. Do you know what I'm saying? Our consciousness, um, Donnie said it best in a song by Alice in Chains called Nutshell, like the
Oh yeah.
saying, this is it in a nutshell. He says, our my gift of self is raped and my privacy is raked. And our gift of self is raped. So, everywhere you look, there's animal abuse and child abuse and satanic, it's just a shit show everywhere. So, how can there be love here? Well, the love that's here is in us. And I think across cultures, the only way to make sense of this place is that it's not really real here. This can't be the real. It just can't. It's such a debauchery. It is such a devolution of what we are capable of.
Hmm.
I'm sure you've had moments in your life where you're just broken apart with joy. You're literally cracked open with love, and it's
Yeah.
pouring out of you. And there's a part of you that almost bifurcates and goes out here and looks back and thinks, look at me. I am in joy right now. I am in love right now. I am giving. And that's what Christ meant when he said, let thine eye be single. That was a bastardization when they translated it. Let it be single. If your eye is single, your body will be full of light, but if it's dark, then you're filled with darkness. Well, when you read that, it doesn't make much sense, but if you go all the way back to the root, what that means is a generous eye, a giving eye.
Hmm.
You're giving. You're full, like a great, not grateful like GREAT, but great, GRATE, like a great. Your
Yeah.
great is over your heart, and you're full and you're giving. You are full of love, and it's holding that in, and it's also a protection from the negative out here. So when we're in those moments, we can realize, like, literally this is a glimpse of what the reality beyond here must be. This place is some kind of a dark shadow reversal.
Hmm.
So I just don't believe we're in a quote real reality, because I think that you look around and you have those moments and you love so deeply, and like holding my children right after I gave birth, and so much, just that great full of love, just giving, giving, giving. And that's what parenthood is, right?
Yeah.
I have a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old, and it's it's patience and giving and loving, and just constantly being willing. For me, willingness is like a fulcrum. It's like a seesaw. The more willing you are, the more giving you are. And the less willing you are, the more stingy and pulled away you are. So how do people do this multiculturally? I think in pockets all over this realm, if someone is able to actually have these moments of self where you identify outside and you recognize what you're capable of here and what we are capable of. And if you can connect with that and hold on tight and realize um, the love is in us and we can give it. And to try, it's terrible. There are horrific things here. It is, I'm not trying to minimize it, but you have to find a way when shit really sucks and your heart is broken. Like if I see, like, oh boy, the stuff I've seen as a therapist, just stuff that literally cracked me open mentally, breaking your heart to children and animals and just the way people hurt each other. So you have to find some way to be willing to feel all of that. Because going back to the metaphysics of it, through suffering, we grow. And the way I choose to look at it is more that the more willing you are to give all of this love and compassion and generosity and reciprocity and just be emotionally present with others and just be willing to be willing instead of playing like hot potato with every emotion that comes to you. You're willing to sit in that and be willing, like people have an emotional swamp and you wade out into it with them and hold their hand and you realize, okay, this is fucked up beyond, it's so foobar that I can't even fucking get my mind around it. But if you're willing to have those moments and understand that in those suffering moments, like a diamond, like lead, you can alchemize it into gold. And the people who have succeeded here have found an angle on that, Joe, somehow. The people, the ascended masters, they've found a way to, like, they're hanging on a cliff, but they found little finger holds to get your fingers in there and express themselves in a way that protects them. I'm not saying their avatar is protected because we go through so much pain. I mean, childbirth, hello. That was really painful twice. And we go through pain in many ways. But at the same time, we have the opportunity to have those joyful moments too. And whatever the they are, they don't have joy the way we do. I think they're capped at like the lowest, you know, red, orange, yellow, maybe at the belly of the beast, you're yellow, red, orange, yellow. That's the Roy. Pretty much they're capped in those negative places. But the people that, we're able to get in touch with some of this other stuff on the other end of the spectrum. And that's how people across cultures, across spirituality, from a Christian to a Taoist, they're coming at it. Maybe they're slicing that bread loaf a different way, but they're finding the same essential, like it's the difference between topography, the top of something, and the function, which would be down deep in it. Somehow they're slicing into that bread with different spiritual practices, but they're finding that core in the same way. And they're threading that needle in a way that helps them grow and expand, even in a place that gives so much pain. And that's the way I look at that.
Hmm. That's really deep. Let thine eye be single is a great verse from a
It is
great quote from
Matthew, I
Jesus.
think.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's almost what I'm getting is if you're looking at something, then don't be building a picture in your head simultaneously. Just look at it and see it. See the
And
vision
that
that fills your eyes and don't add to it and or subtract from it. Just let it be.
100%. And that is, you just, my friend, hit on the core of the double slit experiment, the most important part of it. Because when you're looking, you're seeing, but you're looking, but not seeing. It's an ability to look at something and be present in a different way. And when that happens, the veils drop and we're able to see things that are otherwise hidden from us in this realm. So
Yeah.
I do believe that's what he meant.
He was a cool guy. I like that Nazarene. I don't know what his name was. It probably wasn't a name that starts with J,
I
but
think his name was something like Yashi or
yeah,
Yashua,
yeah.
Yashi. Yeah, I agree.
I
I think
really
he's
so
pretty
much
cool too.
I want this story to be true. I don't care if the miracles didn't happen. I don't care if he was born of
Oh
a
yeah.
I just
No,
want the life to be true. The words and the flipping over of the money changers tables, that those things that he said and did are more important. I think Thomas Jefferson had kind of the same wish for Jesus's life.
yeah,
Uh,
I've read his Bible. He took out all the miracles and stuff, and it was still a great
yeah,
Bible because what he had to say was all of these beautiful things.
yeah.
And therein lies why they have made it such a mockery and a blasphemy to twist it and turn it and edit the Bible, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, can we talk about something, the latest episode on The Melt? Did you
Sure.
listen to
That's
Dr. Amon Hillman?
Oh yeah, yes, I did.
Okay, so I've heard him now on at least three different people's shows that I like. So he's I have 2 degrees from Kevin Bacon here. I really would
Yep.
like to talk to him, but the thing that I find so perplexing, and when I was listening to it, jaw on the floor, thinking this
Oh
guy's
yeah.
he's going to get some major hate because you don't say anything bad about the Nazarene, you know, or else
Yeah. Yeah.
reap the
Yeah.
whirlwind. And I was thinking, but he's not saying anything necessarily blasphemous. He's saying, here's a strange verse in Mark, and what do we make of
Yep.
that? Right? So
Yep.
he's saying, it's
Yep.
your book, not my book, not my book. It's your book. Tell me why this
Yep.
verse is in there. And I don't think it necessarily detracts from the Nazarene that picture in my head, right? Because
Sure.
for one, he is denying it. He's saying, I am not a lay stace. I'm not a child trafficker.
Yes. Not a child
And
trafficker.
he could have been doing something very um, helpful for that kid. Who knows? Who knows? Like,
Very benign. Yes.
right.
I
Uh,
think Mark is twisted more than any of the other gospels.
yeah.
Mark is very twisted. And I think the garden variety Christian that might read it might be very confused. Like in Mark is where the quote when he's on the cross and he says, oh God, or oh Father, you have forsaken me,
Why have
right? Right
said,
before why hast thou forsaken me? And um so the like the baby Christian's going to read that, and what it sounds like on a drive-by reading, it sounds like Jesus was whining and basically, lost his faith in that moment.
right?
But what he's doing is quoting a scripture from the Old Testament. It's either in Isaiah or Jeremiah, I don't remember anymore, but he's actually quoting um a triumphant moment that 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 glorified God. But
Hmm.
if you didn't know that, just reading it, it looks like he has lost his faith in the most trying of moments.
Hmm.
But actually what he's doing is quoting a triumphant moment. So Mark, to me, I mean, I'm working right now on an esoteric breakdown of the book of John. I'm very interested in the Bible. I'm not a Christian by a traditional sense in any
Right.
way, but I'm very interested in the esoteric meaning. And so I'm in the middle. I'm like halfway through John right now. So that's going to be something that comes out hopefully by the end of the year, but it's turning into a longer project, just like the Donald Marshall thing did. But
Yeah.
Mark is the most difficult one to read if you don't know a lot of other scripture because it paints a very almost negative picture of Christ in
I,
many
I'd
ways.
also I'd also heard that the earliest transcripts or manuscripts of Mark did not include a resurrection at all. In fact, I don't think
Correct.
any of the gospels
Yes.
did. I think it just cut it off right after the crucifixion and that's it.
Yes. Exactly. Well,
So,
John has the risen again because the Magdalene is there
right.
and witnesses him, but the others do not.
Yeah.
But John is a book about the alchemical transformation of the soul.
Oh,
And if
yes.
you read John in conjunction with the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which, you know, I don't know who wrote the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, but somebody who understands esoterica and metaphysics, it's literally the journey of the soul.
Yeah.
Um, it's an amazing gospel. So my presentation is going to be like a combo, a 1-2 punch of
Wait.
Book of John and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
I know you'll send me that when it's ready, right?
Oh, of course. Well, I'm going to put it out, like publicly, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely I will. I'm very interested in that because there are truths in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's any seeker is going to bump up against Christianity in all its incarnations. And I just think
Yep.
it's too bad that um we have all these Gnostic Gospels and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the
Yes.
who
The Nag
else is it?
Hammadi. Yep.
All these
Well, the
writers that
Gospel
have,
of
yeah.
Philip, Gospel of Thomas, some of this stuff is just great. It's very interesting.
Who's that famous writer that set out to prove Christianity? Albert Schweitzer. Have you heard of Albert
Yeah,
Schweitzer? Okay.
Schwartz. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And he wrote a tome about the historicity of Jesus
Yes.
Christ, made it his life's work to
Yes.
prove,
Yes, he did.
and he came to the conclusion, well, I won't spoil it for anyone that wants to look up what his conclusion was, but there's things like that. But I guess what it comes around to for me is I really do want that story to be true.
Yeah,
Not all parts of it, just the most important parts, right? And and I
100%.
can forgive people that are like, well, I'm a patriot and I love Jesus Christ. He's my personal Lord and Savior. Forgive my sins. Go to church on Sunday. Like, I'm not going to look down on someone like that. Chances
Yeah,
are, we have more in common than the other crowd. But
100%. I agree with you there. 100%. Although, sadly, I felt this will piss a lot of people off, but sadly, I felt like during the COVID debacle that both sides of that were evenly yoked. It was like two oxen yoked
yeah,
together. They were as deceived as the other crowd.
yeah,
They were all wandering in the desert, and it just felt like there was a very slim middle path. There has been no more clear moment in my life about what Christ talked about finding that middle path
yeah,
than during those 2 or 3 years where
yeah,
you're trying to, which incidentally, this is also the Gospel of Mary Magdalene talking about finding balance and trying to walk that middle path
yeah,
and not being drugged. And again, though, looping back to what we said about pornography, they all on both sides gave themselves away over and over and over again. Their attention and their energy and their time, energy, and attention. That's all the whole thing was. They're on Facebook arguing with people. They're pro mask, they're anti mask, they're this, they're that, there's this. And our family, what we did was spend all that time ignoring all of it, not engaging any of it, and I mean none of it,
yeah,
trying to stay in that like perfect balanced place where, and that was very hard to do,
yeah,
but thankfully we lived in a place where we were literally in a bubble where my children never had, and we we could live our lives and buy food and not deal with any sort of intervention of any kind. But I noticed during that time that both sides were equally blinded, but in different ways. So
Mm.
back to the topography versus function thing, the topography was different between the left and the right.
Yeah.
But it functioned the same in their lives. They gave
Oh,
themselves away on one side or the other of the argument, or and made it that dual, that this realm is so masterful at creating that duality, that dual in all places, up, down, right, left, gay, not, whatever.
yeah.
This entire realm is about duality. And so trying to find that that place of balance is very difficult. And ideologically or physically, either way, spiritually, every kind of ly that you want to put out there.
Yeah, I just think it was such an isolating phenomenon. Um, Totally intentional, by the way.
Yes,
And it
absolutely.
made everybody feel like they were on the outs with their group, I think.
Yeah,
Um, Alienated, isolated, just a total mind fuck. And
it was a ritual all the way
yeah,
from the beginning to the end, uh,
imagine being
to the sheer,
like a little kid and you're just learning a language and you're trying to look at your mother's mouth or your teacher's mouth to see how the vowels
mm.
are supposed to sound and the consonants, and you're looking at their mouth and you can't see it because they've got a mask over their face. It's like what kind of psychological damage happened to the kids that were in that stage at that time? Just can never get that back. Just totally. I just recently
Yeah,
finished reading RFK Jr.'s book, The Real Anthony Fauci, which is an extensive
okay, yeah,
cataloging of all of his life's work, which is to try to kill off as many of us as he possibly can using taxpayer
sure,
dollars to do it. Ever since AIDS, just it was just one
yes,
virus after another, just
oh yeah,
fake virus.
oh yeah,
And then some, the irony is it seemed like he had a preference for obviously his own drugs that he had a share in the patent, but
sure,
but
yeah,
it seemed like what brought him joy was if the drugs happened to be particularly harmful. Like
oh
imagine just
yeah,
giving out, he didn't want to give out
yeah,
placebos. He wanted the
oh no,
drugs to positively do damage to the people that were taking them. I,
and it did, and
what?
it did.
Yeah, AstraZeneca. What was that about? You know?
It's the d there the thing, whatever the negative energy here
Yeah.
is, it absolutely delights in getting one over. It it that is the best way I can describe this energy, because I've had the displeasure of being in that thing's presence. And it is it is it delights in the subterfuge. It loves to get one over. And the therapist in me just sees all the things that it manifests in our human lives. I've seen it in addiction. You know, the like an addict will be telling me, "Oh yeah, I stole a bag of weed or whatever," but that delight in getting one over, that's just a direct channeling of that entity, whatever it is. Is it an egregore of ideas and energy? Is it an actual physical entity? Is it the Satan talked about in the Bible? I mean, I don't think any of those things actually really matter at the end of the day. I think that there's many ways to look at the negative energy here. Um, and it all boils down to the same thing. It's a deceiver and a taker, and doesn't matter what we call it or how we enter, you know it's it is a bifurcation, it is a splitting off of whatever the root of goodness is here, what we would call the tor or the root. So the Tor or the Taurus, and then every time you split, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene states that Jesus says in there, there's no such thing as sin the way that we think of it. Sin is literally the splitting away from that original root.
Hmm.
The more times you split yourself away from that core goodness, the more deviations away you are, then that would be thought of more the way Christ describes it to Mary Magdalene in the book, in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, is the farther away you get, the choices that you make, the things that you think, the
Hmm.
way that you are, in the farther away, that is what sin is. And so this it thing, whatever it is very far
Hmm.
from that core of goodness. It still has its own version of joy and delight, but it delights in the harm and the hurting, and there is no there is no goodness in it.
Do you think it's related to the German word, what you're talking about there, Schadenfreude? Have you heard of that
I've
term?
never heard that before. What is that? Tell me.
Um, I think it means guilty joy. Guilty joy
Sort
is,
of like that duping delight.
yeah,
It
duper's
seems
delight.
like,
That's what,
that duper's delight. Yes. Yes, the moment I saw, Robbie Parker, sort of hee-hawing there, in the middle of you know, the how do we say this? This is going to go on Rumble, right? Or I guess you're going to put it out on Twitter, but the hook that is a sandy beach, that one.
oh, that one. Yeah.
When he's talking, yeah, when he's talking about his wife or his child who was supposedly just killed, but he's laughing off camera right
Mhm.
before
And then,
they catch him. He's like,
uh,
and then he goes, and he just rearranges his face into a
yeah,
mask of like, hi, my name is Robbie and my daughter. And I was like, what in the fuck is this bullshit? Oh my
yeah.
God. Are
Or
you fucking
George
kidding
W.
me?
Bush was another one that was famous for those, like, well,
Oh yeah.
we didn't find any weapons
Well,
of mass destruction, but
yeah, 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 yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
fool me
I know,
once,
right?
shame on you. Fool me twice,
Fool
shame
me
on
twice,
you.
so shame on me or you or
Why is our
whatever.
children
He got
not
lost
learning?
in his own. Yeah, right. Like I kind of feel sorry for him. I don't know. I don't know when he kind of went off the deep end there in the end, and they published some of his artwork that he did. He drew like him, himself in a tub or something, or I don't even remember now. But I was like, this is someone who was harmed a lot as a child and has
Yeah,
been harmed his whole life.
yeah,
So I have compassion and empathy for a lot of these people, the celebrities, the politicians, because I just feel like some of them never had a chance at anything positive in their life or good. Doesn't mean that I enjoy what they do. I just want to try to have some kind of compassion and empathy. It
yeah,
doesn't do any good to carry around that hateful, angry, vengeance, hateful stuff. We
mm,
all do to some degree at times. We don't want to forgive others, but it's really like a fish hook that is, I think I said this before, like it's stuck through your back and out here. And like if we have somebody that we're hanging on the hook, it's like we're carrying around that it's almost like a corpse hanging off the fish hook, and the person who it's stuck through is you. So when you don't forgive someone and take them off the hook, it's you carrying around that dead energy, that dead corpse, that person that you're never going to fucking forgive for any fucking reason, right? And
yeah,
you end up hurting yourself. And again, this is a way that they enjoy harming us, is getting us to harm ourselves, getting us to agree to give consent for them to do whatever, and even better to sort of lead the horse to water and then allow us to fuck ourselves over in 40 different ways.
yeah. That's why
I
I
just
can't hate I'm like you. I can't hate George W. I can't hate Hunter Biden. I can't hate Miley Cyrus or Britney Spears or Justin Timberlake or any of these kids, you know? I
I'm
try to
not going to
see,
give my energy away to it. That's giving your energy away. That
yeah.
gives your energy away.
Yeah, they've
Like, I
done
don't,
nothing to me. I mean, they could say, hey,
no,
George W. Bush is a war criminal. He knew all about 9/11 and let it happen. And then he used it as a pretense to move troops into Iraq, then Afghanistan. And it was a huge mess. And
it
millions of
was.
people died because of this guy and his collusion with this dark group. Um,
Yes.
but even with, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he really was as oblivious to the situation as he seemed. Got to give people the
Oh,
benefit.
oh yeah. I think many of them are puppets. Yeah, I think you're right there. Many of them are puppets. It's just middle management. They seem like they're in charge to us, but there are others behind them pulling the strings. And it's not that I in any way agree with any of the they, but what
Yeah,
I would say to them is, I don't want to give you my time and energy and attention. And if I am hating you, then that's ultimately hurting me because it's hatred that I'm giving out to you, but it's going to cycle around to me. Now, it's easier said than done. I'm not some Pollyanna. I'm not, woohoo, around, life is ponies and, all this shit. And frankly, I don't have all my memories back. And the memories that I do have of some of the negative shit, it's very hard for me to be in a place of balance about this. But I utterly refuse through willpower to give away. I've just had to work through it. I'm not going to give that away to hatred. I'm just not.
yeah, yeah. The one thing that I see a lot of hate towards lately, and I don't know if it's hate or not, but there seems to be a hell of a lot of what the left would call anti-Semitism, or
Mm-hmm.
just outright hatred for this entire group of people, whether it's a nationality or a
Yeah.
race, is up for grabs. But I see like
Yeah.
people reading Mein Kampf and thinking that Hitler was like some kind of saint, and
I
that
know.
the Holocaust never happened, and that part of history has been rewritten by the victors, and
It's
it's funny because on the one hand, those are some people that I think usually are pretty rational, that one topic notwithstanding. And then I also,
yeah,
on the other hand, think of all my people that I like that are Jewish, right? Like I was
sure.
listening to an interview with Ari Shafir on Tucker Carlson today,
Mm,
and I was just remembering like this guy is really funny and I want to hang out with him, you know? Or even Larry David putting together the show
mm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Yeah.
co-creator of
That
Seinfeld.
was a great that was a
Yeah.
great. I loved Curb Your Enthusiasm
It,
back in the day. I don't watch
yeah.
TV. I haven't in like a
Oh.
long time, but yeah, I loved it.
It's just that he's so self-aware. The show is all about what an asshole Larry
Yep.
David can be. And he's the one writing
Yep.
it, you know? And where
Yeah,
do you see that
it's
kind of
I love it.
self-awareness out there, you know?
It was great, it was great TV. And I hear you about I have utterly I think you watch more of the kind of political stuff than I do now. I
Yeah.
think that's a fair thing to say. I don't participate in any of it.
Yeah.
Not on I mean I know who they are, obviously. But
Right.
I can't tell you one thing about the pro-Jew or anti-Jew or whatever. I don't think about it at all
Yeah.
because I'm literally serious about I'm not, every time I smell an agenda,
Yeah.
I'm just, I've just, it's like that old Pink Floyd song, On the Turning Away. I don't
Oh
even
yeah.
want to give it energy where I say I'm against thinking about it. I'm not even, I don't even give it that energy. I just say to myself, I'm turning away from that because
Yeah.
I'm not, it's like during COVID, people are like, you know, so you're not participating. And I said, well, I'm not participating either. I'm just sort of, I'm not giving away my energy in it. What we did all of 2020, my family and we utterly ignored all of it. We went camping for 23 weeks.
That's a nice
23
camping
weeks
trip.
out in the woods of Idaho. Well, we would come back and get food and water, whatever, and then we would head off to another. We live in the wilds of the Pacific Northwest, so we just went off by ourselves. We utterly ignored the world for 7 or 8 months. I shit you not,
Huh.
literally,
Well,
because I smelled an agenda, and my
yeah,
children and my husband are very awake too, and we all were like just in a unison. And schools ended. They booted the kids out at the beginning of March that year, and it was like, all right, we're the fuck out of here. And we were
nice.
for months and months and months.
That's
And
six
so we
months.
don't have that. It was amazing. We don't have like that trauma and whatever, because we were off doing art together and playing games and swimming and playing badminton and camping all over
That's
23
so cool.
different places. It was amazing. And that was my way of telling the realm no,
Yeah.
which is I'm just not going to engage this. But if you take it beyond just a sort of a flat no, and you get into the realm of like, or the place of like, no, fuck this, whatever, then
Yeah.
that's giving away your energy. So it
Yeah.
was just more like we were like,
And
I'm out.
haven't we seen that that is one way that people charge up the magnetic chain? Um, the sigil magic is to use your love me or hate me, but don't feel neutral about me.
Sure.
Trump
Yeah,
used that to his advantage, right? Like he
sure
used
did.
that liberal outrage, like that screaming at the sky to garner more power for himself,
He
and it
did.
works. It works. I mean, look that like Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein,
Oh, yeah.
they're on one end of
All
the
of them.
spectrum, and then you also have
Yep.
like some really cool Jews that are
100%.
beautiful humanitarians, like Marshall Rosenberg is one of my favorites. He wrote the course Nonviolent Communication, which I think about on a daily basis.
I have
You know,
never heard of that
just
ever. That's very interesting.
oh,
I'll look that up.
it's a great one. I think you'll enjoy it if you do.
Thank
But
you. I will. I will check that out. No, there's some amazing. Um, my master's thesis advisor when I finished my master's degree was a Jewish woman. I love her. I love her to this day. She was amazing. Like
yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to dredge up hatred for an entire group of people. And I'm
right,
just suspicious when people pin a bunch of negativity on an entire group of people. Like, it's not
yeah,
even possible for every single one of them to be as evil as they make them out to be, right? It's just literally not
right.
possible. So, any kind of delineation where we're in that duality, I just do the I'm on the turning away.
On the turning
I'm
away
out. I
of
just,
how does that line go? On the turning away of from the pain and
from
damn struggle
pain and sorrow, from the
from the
pain and
pain.
sorrow.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if Donnie wrote that, but I think he did. I think he did.
So it wasn't
He
David
wrote,
Gilmour.
I think that Roger Waters, I mean, this is just off the cuff of me BSing at this point because I was a massive Pink Floyd fan.
Yeah.
When I was in my undergraduate college, during my undergraduate degrees, I was a DJ, a college radio DJ. And
Uh-huh.
so I did like classic rock. And so I had like an entire block of Pink Floyd that I would play. This is in the 80s. I'm dating myself. I'm 55. So during the 80s when I was doing I did 3 undergraduate degrees. I was like, okay, whatever, wandering through education, but not lost. But anyway, while I was there, and I played a lot of Pink Floyd, and I even went and saw them live, The Delicate Sound of Thunder, which was fucking amazing. But anyway, I think Roger Waters, he
What
was
was the
obsessed
lineup?
with war.
What was the lineup in that year? Because at
It
some
was
point
just Pink Floyd.
was it
Yeah, I didn't,
Joel, Richard Wright? David Gilmour, Roger
Uh,
Waters.
yes, yes, everyone
Okay.
was there. Yes, at the
Okay.
time.
Because I know
I
they
think that was
they
right.
had a real rocky
Roger
period.
left.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. Well, he was obsessed with war, of
Yeah.
course. Look at the Wall, and then the last album, The Final Cut, is 100% about war and about Two Suns in the Sunset is about nuclear war. So,
Yeah.
um, but I think, for example, the song Amused Themselves to Death, which was a solo project after Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
Roger Waters, I wouldn't, let me just put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if Donnie wrote that. Although I think Roger Waters is a lot more talented and capable than maybe David Gilmour is, just my
Yeah.
personal opinion. I would find it very hard to believe because Donnie wrote so much of the famous music from the 80s that he never wrote anything for Pink Floyd. Now, to my knowledge, he's never mentioned it, but I
Mm.
would be very surprised. And some of these songs have that signature Donniness to them, like On the Turning Away. But I used to play that in my radio shows, so I've loved it for 30 some years. And it just seems to be a good way to think about it when you feel your energy being pulled one way or another, someone speaking on a podcast or on the television or whatever, which I don't even have a TV, but even on a podcast, if I feel there's a real agenda and it's being, I'm out, I'm done, next, on
Hmm.
the turning away. Because I think a lot of the Back to Christ again, he did talk about guarding even your thoughts, like, because he taught, we're in a realm where we can manifest, our thoughts are can manifest into actual um situations. You can become obsessed with something and then it will
Sure.
manifest. um so where your attention and your energy goes, then that's where it all flows. So um I just think it's important to work really hard to guard that, to just try to be within yourself emotionally. I'm not going to give away anger. I'm not going to give away sadness. I'm going to work to stay sort of self-preservatory in that way. It's very hard to do. I'm not saying I'm some perfectionist, but I really work on it every single day. And I notice when something's pulling on me to give energy away. And I don't want to make a big resistance to it because resisting is a type of energy as well. So that's where that balance comes in.
Yeah. I like that. I had no idea you were such a Pink Floyd fan. I am too. It's my favorite group.
Oh, really?
Yeah, although I'm
Yeah,
more
no,
of
it's
a
my favorite.
70s Floyd fan. I like
Yeah.
Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and
Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Yeah, all the way
that's
back.
actually I think that's 60s. That was a Sid Barrett album, right? That might
It
have
was. It was all the way back to
yeah.
Sid. Yep. No, I
I
love I love Pink Floyd. Love it.
I gotta say I'm more of a David Gilmour slash Roger Waters era guy. I don't
Mm-hmm.
I like
Yeah.
Sid, but uh,
Sure.
his songwriting style, in my mind, they didn't really get great until Roger took the helm.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Roger Waters is a genius.
Yeah,
I mean, he's one of the only bands that I can actually say I think he wrote the majority of that music, because most of these other people who are attributed to writing all this amazing music, it was actually Donnie that wrote most of their music, if not all of it, literally. And so,
yeah.
um,
With
he's
Roger,
never mentioned.
I could see Roger being the mastermind behind the greater poetic achievements of Pink Floyd, just because I heard him go on Mark Maron's podcast a few years back, and it was right around the time that he released "Amused to Death," that album that you referenced,
Okay. Yes.
and he just shared some of the poetry that he had been writing recently, and it was totally in his voice. And he's just reading the poetry, not singing it, well, not playing a track or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was brought to tears by those words. Like,
Oh, yeah, he's a poignant, he can paint, he's like Donnie, he can paint. I mean, has anyone we could even make the argument, has anyone spoke more eloquently in music about war than more than Roger Waters? I don't think so. I
No.
mean, just listen to the final cut. And I know that some of the stalwart fans will say, well, that was crappier, because they hit the pinnacle at, Dark Side of the Moon, or, or The Wall, which is such an amazing accomplishment. I started every show with Comfortably Numb. That was the beginning of every radio show I ever did.
Yeah.
Um, because it's such a phenomenal, and it just nails so much culturally and about just addiction and life. But yeah, Roger was so profoundly affected by the war and his father's involvement that it just oozes out of the music in a way that it touches. I mean, that's why it's amazing,
Do you know
in
what?
my opinion.
Um, there's a movie that I watched last year that I think if you haven't seen it recently, it's worth another look. Um,
Okay.
Tommy. Have you seen Tommy?
Oh, not in a long time.
Watch it
Not in
again.
a long time.
Check it out if you have,
Okay, I will.
yeah, download it. I think it's all about the crowning of Osiris ritual, but
Oh, wow.
it's very
Look at you,
relevant
decode.
to your research. Yeah. Uh,
Right on, I will.
yeah, I shouldn't have even said that. I shouldn't have primed you in that way, but I think you'll have your own
Oh, now,
revelations.
oh, I'll be interested. Thank you. Yeah, no, I love that.
Especially the
Yeah, it's
scene.
been a very
There,
long time.
there's a particular scene with Tina Turner that I don't miss it. Don't miss it.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Excellent.
But
Tina
Jack
Turner, yeah.
Nicholson, yeah.
Oh, I will definitely check it out. Speaking of Tina Turner, like Donnie wrote a lot of her hits, like Private Dancer and What's Love Got to Do with It. And
Yeah.
yep, she has an amazing voice. She sold it, but it was his music.
Um, do you know the band Talk Talk?
Yeah,
Talk Talk.
yeah, from back in the day. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't remember like what was their did they have a one-hit wonder?
no, they had a string of good hits. Um,
Really? Okay.
yeah,
Maybe I don't know them as well
but
as I think I did.
I had this Talk Talk song just blasting through my head all morning today, and I work with a couple
Okay.
of older Gen Xers, and I was saying like, if I sing you a
That's
line from the
me.
song, yeah, well, these guys are older than you. At least they look.
Oh, okay.
But I said, if I sing you this song, you can tell me the name of the band, right? And so you said, yeah, sing the song. So I said, baby, life's what you make it. Come and take it, And
Yeah. Did anyone get
and
it?
he's like, nope, never heard it. So I was like, really? Never heard this
Really?
song. You were a child of the 80s. You were like in high school. Then he's like, yeah, oh, okay. So
Oh
I,
yeah.
I whip out my phone and pulled out Spotify and put the song on. And it was like,
Okay.
it doesn't look like anything to me.
Oh, really?
Both of them.
Wow, that's really.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild, right?
I
Isn't
couldn't
it interesting when things like that happen? It's really bizarre. You just look at
yeah.
them and you're like, are we in a different reality tunnel or something?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
It's not like
Huh.
Berenstain, Berenstain. I was like, this was a pretty big hit. Like I've heard this song on the radio hundreds of times. And it's like, what radio station? 99.5 The Mountain, which is the station where it would be on, classic rock station, right? In
Classic
Denver.
rock.
And he's like,
Interesting.
yeah, I listen to that station. It's like, you never heard the song before. Amazing. Amazing.
Wild. Well, maybe, I don't know. Some of that stuff's hard to explain. Maybe he literally never did hear it. He literally is in a different reality tunnel.
Yeah,
Like our reality is constructed. We're in our own reality bubble. And then if your bubble interacts with mine, there's a Venn diagram in the middle, like the Vesica Pisces,
right.
the part that overlaps. But uh but literally the rest of it is sort of different.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I mean, there's just people where I'm like, really? About all kinds of things. Because I've
Yeah.
lived long enough now that, especially with other Xers, I would think we have a lot of the same, shared memory, shared whatever. And there are things where people just, I mean, some of it is geographic, because America is a big place. So maybe in different
Yeah.
parts of America, different music was more played or whatever. But sometimes it's just odd like that, like you're describing. And then you wonder, what is that?
I do. Um, Shoot, I was just thinking like in Boulder, REM was a really big deal, and Talk Talk was a really big
Really?
deal. Yeah. Uh, and maybe these guys grew up in Denver, and that was just a big enough difference where they're listening to like
Mm,
Ted Nugent or White Snake or Guns N' Roses. They're just not listening to REM. But I remember
interesting.
when Losing My Religion came out on the radio. And it sounded so subversive because here I was, this kid going to like a private Christian school, and I hear this guy
Right.
about like, that's me in the corner, that's me in the
In the
spotlight,
corner.
losing my religion. And then when I heard you bring up
Mm,
that song, hit me.
yep,
That is the same voice.
it
There is
is. It's
something like
Donnie.
that in Sting's songs from the Police era.
King
Although,
of Pain.
yeah, it's like,
Donnie, you can draw the line from King of Pain all the way to Imagine Dragons Believer, not 2017.
yeah,
Pain, you make me a believer. It's the same voice.
I can see
The
it.
King
Okay.
of Pain. Yep.
Um, from the Black Album, you mentioned it before, Inner Sandman, King of Pain,
Yes.
Losing My
Yes.
Religion, and
100. Yep.
um, Jeremy from
Man in a
Jeremy from Pearl
Yep.
Jam, right? But oh, okay, so I'm sorry, I just thought of this question. I was
Man in the Box.
Man in the
Okay,
Box
go
from
ahead.
Alice in Chains.
All of it is the same voice. Yes.
The Miley Cyrus episode of Black Mirror that you brought up in the beginning of our broadcast here. Uh,
Yes.
the song that she's covering is, do you remember?
Yes. Yes. Um I can hear her singing in that growly voice. Da, da, da.
Trent Reznor.
It's not, pardon?
Trent Reznor.
Yeah. Uh no, I can't reach it right now in my head. I can
It's
hear her voice singing it.
from the album Pretty Hate Machine 1989.
Is that the one that had Closer on it?
Close.
Right?
That's from the Downward Spiral, which was 94, but she was singing
94, okay.
um she was singing Bow Down Before the One You Serve. You're gonna
Oh
get,
yeah, bow down before the one you serve. Yes.
yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna get what you deserve.
Yeah.
Yes. And Donnie has mentioned that song before because he always tells the they, I'm gonna make sure you get what you deserve in the end.
Okay. So
So
I
yeah,
was
he wrote
wondering
that too.
if he had some of the Nine
Yes.
Inch Nails influence going on there.
100%. He wrote, I think I talked about it it's in the second part of my
Okay.
series. I put Closer in there because that's the beginning of the 90s, and Closer was like 94, 95, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. And the Closer, that I want to fuck you like an animal, I want to feel you on the inside. These are the things, he goes back and forth between speaking from their point of view, the they, because
Yeah.
they would tell him things like this, I want to feel you on the inside. And they would tell him, you're so special. You make me feel closer to God when I fuck you. And
Whoa.
like, he'd be laying there, his ribs broken. That's what the song Torn was later in the 90s, where he says, I am laying on the ground, naked and ashamed. I am torn. You're a little late. I'm
Is that
already gone.
Natalie Imbruglia?
Natalie Brig, yes, yes, and Donnie wrote that too. But yes, so the Closer, which obviously was a huge hit and has an amazing beat and is like so listenable. But
Yeah.
if you really listen, it's Donnie talking about the they talking to him, that he makes them feel closer to God, if there is a God. And
Hmm.
he's talked about that a lot. How they told him, I covered this in part two of my series, how, and this is just classic abuser mentality, grooming. The abuser will tell the child how special they are. You should be very lucky that I chose you because you're so special. And
Hmm.
they do this, and they have done this with him since he was a child. You're very special, which he is. He's extremely unique and more prolific than any songwriter in ever in the history of our realm. And other you could make the case interdimensionally, if such a thing exists. I'm sure his music is everywhere, but they tell him, you're special, you're so special, but then they harm him. And isn't that exactly what an abuser does? You're special, daddy loves you, and then hurts you, right? And then that causes that whole PTSD, trauma bonding, psychological, responding. And Donnie just typifies that in the way that he interacts with the world. And if you look at these songs, that is exactly what he's saying all the way through music, all the way through. There's a through line from when he was little till now. 100%.
Um, I was watching last night this movie about these two reporters that broke the story about Harvey Weinstein, I think,
Okay.
for the New York Times. Um, and it had to do so much fact checking and research just to get permission to run the slightest story about this guy because
I'll
the
bet.
pattern was that he would have anybody that confronted him or was threatening to expose him, followed by essentially like a privatized version of Mossad,
Yeah,
um,
I'll bet.
BlackRock security. All
Yeah,
these
BlackRock.
harassment campaigns, but every person that these reporters would talk to, every woman they talked to, was so terrified and felt like she was alone and isolated. And this they could
Yes.
see the pattern so clearly from woman to woman telling the exact same story. He said this to me. He did
Yeah.
this. Um,
Yes. Yes.
um, and I was just thinking like these monsters out there that know how to abuse people and get some kind of positive energy from their fear and their disgust.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. 100%.
and Donnie was sounds like he was
It's
dealing with these people that had that pattern of abuse
100%
spans back for
over and
years and
over. And
years.
then the mind, ever since, when they first brought him when he was almost five, he was 4 3/4. And in the beginning, they would just try to scare him into, like, or they'd hit him with a pipe or something. It was physical. But within about 6 months to a year, it turned sexual. And, you know, he he most expresses that in songs like Nirvana, Rape Me,
Yeah.
and Michael Jackson, They Don't Really Care About Us. They don't really
Right.
care about us. He says, hate me, rape me, everybody do me.
Yeah.
I mean, because everyone has. And if you blend that in, when Donnie has a lot of why he comes across as so caustic to people, why it is so difficult for so many to understand the abrasiveness,
Hmm.
is because he is deeply embarrassed and ashamed about some of the things that they made him participate in, because there have been times where they shot him up with drugs and MK ultra'd him, and he participated in debauchery. He wasn't always the victim, but they made him do things. heavily drugged, and then they show him movies of it and laugh at him when he cries and tell him that he's weak and
Hmm.
what a little bitch. Like, I wish that I could express to everyone who has a hard time engaging this narrative just how strong this person is. And I don't say this as a fangirl. Of course, I love the music. Duh. It's the backdrop of my life. It's the backdrop of your life. He
Ah,
wrote the music that you most likely you grew up to it, you got married to it. I'm telling you, I know I did, unknowingly, because I didn't know about him until, 2013. But unknowingly, I went to the prom to his music. I got laid the first time to his music, just different music in my life. I gave birth to the Coldplay, the first albums, the Parachutes album. He wrote most of that album. So, I mean, he's the backdrop of our lives. So of course I'm a fan, but I don't say this as a fangirl. I say this as a person, as a therapist, and someone who's looked at this situation extremely closely for 11 years. And he is so strong. The shit he's went through, and I don't mean if you take away the physical and the sexual, just the mind fuckery of
yeah.
fucking with him day in and day out in his personal life in this part of the realm and at night. The fact that he is still can make a coherent sentence is fucking crazy. And I'll go out there professionally and say that. The fact that he could even come across coherently in a way that, and that his story has been consistent since the moment he came out. It hasn't changed.
What do you think drives a guy like Donnie to keep going, to keep living?
There's, he would say over the years, I've come so far now, I can't quit. Part of it is vengeance. He's subsumed at times and he vacillates. It's a dialectic. Sometimes it's more vengeance and sometimes it's more, um they've given him a bit of a savior complex. They've told him, you are the new age Jesus. If anybody's going to save the world from us, it's you, because you're the only one who's ever stood up to us.
Huh.
And so they fucked with his head to the point where he doesn't want to be Jesus. He doesn't want to be a savior, but yet, ironically, and kind of behind his own back, he is participating in saving this realm.
Hmm. I like the idea that some guy from Nova Scotia who wrote such an extensive
The
part of the catalog of music that we love so much could be the modern day Messiah, the least
I
expected.
love I That's why the Foo Fighters, they wrote that song, There Goes My Hero.
Yeah,
He's ordinary. That's about Donnie. He wrote it about Donnie. He said, he's my, obviously they came out publicly and said, oh, it was about Kurt Cobain or
yeah.
whatever, but it wasn't. He wrote that about Donnie. Donnie is ordinary. He's a guy from Nova Scotia who has a real sarcastic sense of humor, sardonic. He has no problem being politically incorrect. He doesn't give a shit about, he calls them retard. He uses all the words that caused people listening to want to cancel him and go crazy. I mean, this is the person who wrote in, I Want My MTV, hey, honey, that's his own hair. It's the dirty
Oh,
little faggot, I mean, that's Donnie, okay? That's
yeah.
Donnie.
That little
That's the
faggot
same
with the
person.
earring and the
The
makeup.
earring and the makeup.
Hey,
Look,
buddy,
honey,
yeah, it's
that's
his
his
own
that's
hair.
his own hair. That's Donnie. Donnie's making fun of them. He's like, yeah, they might get a little, oh, look, honey, he has a jet airplane, but but he's a millionaire, but he might get a little blister on his finger. He's like, he's going scorched earth on them because
Yeah.
they don't do shit. He fucking writes their fucking music and then they get the money and the fame. He wrote I Want My MTV, but that voice That is the same voice that many years later wrote in his letter when he disclosed that cloning was a place for old, dirty men with underdeveloped penises to get laid. I mean, the same person who says things like that, just
Huh.
who has judgments about these elite and calls them faggots and retards and all these things where, someone, everybody's like, oh my God, he said the R word and he said the F word, we'll cancel him, I don't believe him. People understand trauma. Son of
Yeah.
a bitch. I mean, I understand that maybe I understand trauma more because I'm trained as a clinical psychologist, but to me, he is walking, talking trauma PTSD 101. So I mean, this is how people present when they've been fucked with their whole life.
Yeah.
And I wish, I hope, that is my hope with the series that I did. It was less about making sure people knew that Donnie wrote the music.
Right.
It was way more about trying to make the point about this person is telling the truth about the nature of the realm we live in and the technology and the abilities of the controllers or the would-be controllers of this realm. That stuff is tantamount, it's integral for those of us waking up to understand what kind of realm that we're in, because then you can begin to prepare yourself psychologically and spiritually, because this place is simultaneously way more fucked up than even the most, you know, deeply held Christian belief about Satan. I mean, this place is fucked sideways.
Yeah.
And the good news is way better than anything that is hinted at in the Bible. It's heaven is within us, the ability to, we have so much more to our spirituality and our abilities. And I don't mean just like our ability to like telepathy or hovering in the air or whatever, although I believe that we can do those things, but our minds are so capable on a spiritual level that I don't even know that the garden variety Christian or spiritual activist of any religion understands. So it's simultaneously way worse than what people think and way better. Like, we are powerful, we are immortal. You are a soul that has always been and will always be, and no matter what these sons of bitches do to you, they can't kill that. They can't. They can't create you and they can't kill you. They can kill your avatar, and they have probably.
Eh,
They've looped you here. I know, right? Right? It helps in a way, doesn't it? To say, you know
sure.
what? The flesh, whatever. I've been here before. I'm done here, so I'd like to sort of level up out of here. So I don't want to say like I'll be here again.
Exactly.
I've been here before. I've been looped through here. I've been killed here. I know it because I have memories of times with my life ending here. I've been killed in consciousness transfer situations, many. So I have many memories of death now. And guess what, motherfucker? I'm immortal. No matter what you do, I live on, you sons of bitches. So that, to me, that's why I don't get too disempowered by the Donald Marshall story or any story, because look at how powerful psychologically and spiritually Donald Marshall is. I mean, if anyone has surmounted, it's him. And it's us, all of us who are here. We are surmounting every day. And I was thinking about this the other night. I was laying in bed. I'm always laying in bed at night thinking shit. And I was thinking, you know what? They always say that we give ourselves away, that we're like, weak, and that we give ourselves away to drugs and alcohol and sex and porn and whatever. But you know what? We haven't even given ourselves away on any kind of level the way they have. They have given every ounce and shred of whatever good they could have ever been, ever. I mean, they are whores up and down. Like, they can say, well, you're a prostitute to alcohol or something, which I'm not. But what if I was? Yeah, but I didn't give my soul away. I didn't. And And I don't mean just something trite like, they signed their name to the devil. Like, so, I mean, literally daily, they give themselves away to the debauchery to the point where there's no shred left of anything that even is considered human anymore. So the horrors in this realm are not us.
Do you know the album Joshua Tree? Of course you do. You too.
100% Donnie wrote three
With or
songs on it. I'm
with or
sure you can
without
guess
you.
which ones.
Let me guess.
Yep.
Okay. With or without you, and you give
Yep.
yourself away. Right. The line from that song.
Yes.
Where
That's
the
why I was quoting it. Yep.
yep.
Where the streets have no name.
Where the
Yep.
streets have no name. And what's another one from that album? The
I
sweetest thing.
still,
No, that's not on
I
that one.
still,
I still
I
haven't found what
still
I'm looking for.
haven't found
So
what I'm
the
looking for. You
three
got it.
most iconic songs on the album he wrote. Wow.
Yes. 100%.
And those are
And you could hear it.
those are almost like gospel songs, all three of them.
100%. And he's written some beautiful gospel music too. And he's written some trite gospel music like Jesus Take the Wheel. He wrote that too.
No,
He's
no.
not he's not proud of it. He's not
Doesn't want
proud
to
of
claim
it.
that one.
But well, he laughs about he's like, they made me he said he literally said I couldn't think of anything else. So I thought Jesus take the wheel. But you know what? It's not the worst song out there. He's written some seriously fucked up shit on purpose because like they would give him little I don't know, challenges. They would say, make up a song about, I don't know, the one he wrote about Barbara Streisand, Duck Soup. That song is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's silly, and he made them swear, okay, if I make up a song about her, you have to swear that you will release it. And they're like, yes, we will. And so then he just puts, so then he gets, beaten for it, but they swore, so they have some weird sense of honor. So they're like, okay, so they release it. But so he's written, or like just trite shit like, call me maybe, you know,
Oh
oh
yeah.
my God, or
How much of
like
Taylor Swift's catalog?
a lot, especially in the beginning stuff, all of it.
Yeah.
And all of Gaga, all of like Pink,
Yeah, because that
um
that album that Lady Gaga
Britney.
did, Fame, that's a banger, man. That's a good album.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's Donnie, the way Donnie talks about her is number one, he says well, he has lots to say. What I'll say is I'll direct people to the pro boards and they can read about what Donnie had to say about
Oh,
Lady
come
Gaga.
on, Dish, give us a hint. What's he say
I
about
try
Lady
I
Gaga?
Well, I mean, I will say this. He said about her, he said some pretty heavy shit about her, but what I will say, he's a couple things he said that I'm willing to share is he said number one, that all she brought was the outfits and that he wrote all of the first like two or three albums. And the second thing he said was that she told him that watching him try to disclose about the situation at the cloning center was like having front row tickets at uh, the end of the world. Front row seats, tickets to the end of the world.
Wow.
Because, there's just a lot of, when he started disclosing this stuff, then there was a lot of drama, obviously, at the cloning center at night because he told a lot of things about a lot of celebrities and they would tell him don't and he just would say whatever he wanted.
Wow.
So people were angry, they don't want their dirty laundry out, and around,
She
understandably,
I definitely saw her in a different light once I saw photos and videos of her being so close with Marina Abramovich, who
Yeah, I
was
know. When they did the satanic sign to each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's like her
Yep.
acolyte, went to spend time with her.
Yes.
It's not a that's she's like the female version of modern day Aleister Crowley type person. Her artwork is just
100%.
eerie and disgusting, right?
It is. I mean, I think all of us who went through the first round of the Pizzagate stuff, we got
Yeah.
introduced to her in 2016, and it was there are still things that I remember from 2016 and 17, like, because I was less capable at that point of not giving away my time and energy. So when I first came across all that, I went down all those rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And there is stuff that to this day is still very disturbing to me. Stuff that I found on various, deep dives here and there. Um, I went on a lot of Facebooks of people who are ancillary to people like her,
Hmm.
people who were on her, and then, then you go to the next person, and just finding out what they're just posting and stuff. And just, there's all kinds of very disturbing people involved in all of this, sort of out in the open. And they're in little silos, sort of informationally, where before the Pizzagate stuff, none of it was open. And so they all just conversed with each other on Facebook and shared pictures and did whatever until it all became, out. And then people were screenshotting it. And then a
Hmm.
lot of that disappeared. Now it's all been scrubbed.
Yeah.
But I remember it. And,
Yeah.
some of it, again, it goes right back to what I'm saying about Donnie. This is stuff that is traumatizing. It's not PTSD in the way that we think of it. It's secondary PTSD, where you see something and it is so troubling that happened to someone else that you have secondary PTSD. And Donnie 100% has seen a lot of shit happen to children, a lot of children and adults. So
Wow.
besides his trauma, he's carrying that around too. It's
So
it's hard to fathom.
these cloning centers are real. I keep hearing
100%.
about them. They do shell, soft core disclosure on like Netflix, right? Did you see that movie with Paul
100%.
Rudd? It was called Living with
Yes.
Yourself. You saw that one? Okay.
Yes.
It's all about a
Yes.
cloning center
Yep.
run by the
Yes.
Chinese. Yeah. And what do they do with
There
the old
it's
clone?
the chipper.
Yeah. Or they just
They put
bury
him
them,
in the
right?
chipper.
They do?
Right. But I mean, but for realsies, they throw them in it. They have like a wood chipper, and it gets rendered down in a big vat full of, like, organs and blood and juices and shit. And then it just gets reconstituted back into creating the nutrients that go into the next group of clones being grown in the tubes.
Just like literally
Like,
from the
it's
Matrix.
100% just like that. Like, if you look at, they cloned Tyrone, that movie that came out last year with Jamie Foxx in it. Have you seen that?
Now, should I watch
They
it?
cloned Tyrone. Yes. There's so much disclosure in there about the cloning centers and kind of how the elite are running, like, I'm gonna say the experiments in different neighborhoods on this level of the realm, and what's happening underground and above ground, and how they put things in, like, the hair salon gel and hairspray to change cognition.
Wow.
um I mean, and how in the food to change their behavior and their emotions. Like, it's one big experiment. So they cloned Tyrone, really important. I think some of these things are just really important to see. I mean, Westworld's really important. Severance on Apple TV, very important to understanding consciousness transfer and consciousness bifurcation and splitting. Altered Carbon, the stacks. Have you seen Altered Carbon? Where their consciousness is on a stack in the back of their neck.
Um, that's not the Philip K. Dick series. I think that one's called Electric Dreams. I don't know if I've seen Altered Carbon. I need to, though. You're not the first person to
But you
recommend it to me.
It's good, but back to what you just did, Philip K. Dick, Electric Dreams. One of those is super important. It's the one with the actor Steve Buscemi in it, is
Yeah.
my opinion. But
Yeah.
the one where, they have hybrid pig beings. Do you remember the one I'm talking
Yep.
about?
Yep.
And they have Jax and Jills, which are
Yeah.
Robotoid android, right? And
Hmm.
the he talks right there, like what we discussed in our other talk. Remember, he held up the quantum berries, the quantum consciousnesses, and he said, "This is a berry." And it was a little glowing red thing. And remember, I told you that's what I think strawberry fields forever are, is a glowing field of all
Oh,
of our quantum consciousnesses. And that's what that song is about, is that strawberry fields forever, is that literally our consciousness is housed in a non-local way somewhere outside this realm. We're not local, like our consciousness is being sort of downloaded or beamed into this avatar, like our brain is
whoa.
sort of like a wet crystal. And so that the strawberry fields forever are those berries. And in Philip K. Dick Electric Dreams, it's either the fourth, fifth, or sixth episode, but it's the one where they're growing the jacks and the jills, and they
Yeah,
put the quantum consciousness in them.
yeah.
That episode alone is filled with so many pieces of truth. So like all the way, over the last 10 years, there's just like a growing in the show Peripheral, where they're transferring consciousness across timelines. Peripheral came out, I think, a couple years ago. They only did one season, but I highly recommend it. So I mean, like there's like 10 shows that I would recommend that people, engage, because by the time you finish all of them, the Donald Marshall stuff, you're like, oh, he was fucking telling the truth, 13 years ago,
Wow.
because all of this stuff has been sort of slowly disclosed, drip, drip, drip to us since
What do
then,
you
you know.
before one last question and then we'll go like Columbo. One last question, man.
One last question. All right. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, damn, we've been
Yeah,
chatting for a
it's pretty
while.
late.
I've enjoyed it.
How
I've
time
enjoyed
flies.
it.
I mean, me too. It's fun.
Yes.
Um, what do you think Donald Marshall's destined to do here on out
Mm.
into the future?
I think he's going to do everything he can to drag this realm off of some sort of precipice of, like, I truly believe he wants to be part of us, those of us who are real, leveling up and leveling up the fuck out of here. So in a way, he really is helping save us the same way you are, the same way I am, the same way all of us that are really sincerely every day in the trenches doing this, in and out, thinking about it. When we're not talking with others, we're still thinking about it, or I'm writing stuff down, and I know you are. And some of the people that we interact with, the folks on the melt, and all of us. Donnie's important because he was strong enough to tell some really hard truths. It was a hard thing.
Hmm.
I mean, he came out in 2011. This is before any of this programming. We were like, and I was pretty awake, and I didn't come across his stuff till 2013. I was pretty awake in 2013. I started waking up in 1998. So I was not a baby truther. I was, but it was still really hard to hear this stuff. Wait a minute, our consciousness is, but then I was like, holy fuck, this explains all these weird memories I have, these things that have happened to me, and it made all kinds of sense. It provided a context for a lot of things that had happened to me throughout my life. And so I just started following it very closely. And I think he's important because he helps open that door of knowledge and understanding about the truth of our realm. And that, and he'll say that too. He doesn't care to be known about the songwriter. Those songs came at great pain to him. It was shit to him. He doesn't even want to hear some of it.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, music just oozes out of him. That's why that song, Pain, I'm a believer. The song Imagine Dragons, my life, my love, my joy came from pain. He is joyful about music. It just oozes out of him. Even the most evil sons of bitches at the cloning center love to watch him create music. When he creates music, Joe, it's like I can't even explain it. He literally dances, and his hands are moving, and he's singing, and he's like la la la. Like I've never seen anything like it ever. It's
Huh.
mesmerizing. It oozes out of him. It is magical and special. And there are many people who create music but no one has created as much across time as Donald Marshall. So what is he destined to do? Well, in a way, he's already done it. He's already touched more lives than I can think of, really many in all of history. He's touched a lot of fucking lives across many decades because of his music. And what is he going to do in the future? He's going to keep on doing what he's doing.
That's good to
He
hear.
just is. He has a willpower that's crazy. I don't know how he does it.
How old is he? I know I said one more question, but how old is he? Do you know how old he is?
Let's see. Let me think. He is 5.5 years younger than me. So in September this year, he turned 48 last year. He will turn 49 this year on September 30th. And
49.
he never thought he would ever make even 40. He didn't think he would live because he has so much heart damage, even on this level of the realm, because of what they've done to him during the REM stuff. It has caused massive heart damage. He's had surgeries and such to deal with the damage that it's caused his heart. So he never thought he would live this long, but he has. So I don't know. I guess we shall see, said the blind man,
That's
like
right.
what Donnie does. It's the same thing with all of us, right? We shall
Uh,
see.
We shall see.
And we'll just keep keeping on and keeping on. I'm really glad we were able to talk instead of me getting bumped off of
Oh,
my
I know.
stupid
This has been great.
internet.
Totally smooth, no bumps, no glitches. It's great. Must
It
have
was
fixed
very
it.
cool, Joe. Yay. Thank you
Uh,
so much for the invitation. I enjoyed it. I hope we get to chat some more sometime.
Thank you, TymeRider. I would say your name, but I'm not sure. Are you staying kind of anonymous lately?
I, you know, anyone can take a screenshot and, try to, I don't really care,
That's,
but
yeah,
at the
family.
same time, well, and it's more about like, I'm, you know, I could introduce myself as doctor. I do have a PhD. I am a doctor. Most people
Huh,
who have a doctorate introduce themselves as Doctor so and so. Um, but I want the content that I put out to be more about the content and less about me, like, hey, I have a doctorate, I have credentials or
right.
whatever. I just want it to stand on its own. And so
Yeah.
that's honestly the major reason why I just go with TymeWriter. It's not that I'm like so opposed that people know who I am, but I really want them to engage the material in a way that, like, I'm just trying to be me, putting out my truth, and hopefully it connects with people.
Well said. Speaking of said material, if you text me the best link so people can watch your four-part series on YouTube, is it?
I will.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh no, it's not on YouTube
it's on
because of
Rumble,
all the
right?
copyright. They
Of
won't.
course,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's on. Yeah, yeah,
Rumble.
it's on Rumble and on Odyssey. So I will text them to you.
And at least your Rumble channel, just for people that are listening and not watching, what is your Rumble channel?
TymeRider,
Time
capital
Runner.
TYME, Rider, RIDER, just one word, TymeRider. And
Excellent.
that's my Odyssey. And that's me on X and me on Insta and me on Substack. And as the year, like I said, I've been dealing with like my elderly parents this year. I had planned on having more content pretty quickly after the Donald Marshall stuff, but
Yeah.
then stuff happened with their health. But I'm simultaneously working on two projects right now. One is the Esoteric Book of John, and the other one is a more fun thing. I'm going to say that it's Donald Marshall adjacent. It's not about Donnie and it's not referencing Donnie or anything like that, but yet it's about material kind of like that. It's addressing consciousness and consciousness transfer and the they. So I'd call it Donald Marshall adjacent. So anyway, I'm
Okay.
working on those two things, and who knows what else. I've got lots of other ideas. I don't care if I reach thousands of people. I just feel like I would like to meet people like yourself that I can have these conversations with, and that's really what my goal is. to meet like-minded people and
Well,
then just bounce ideas.
you are so unique. I don't think you're going to find too many like you out there, but
Well, bless your
I wish
heart. I
my
don't know
channel
about
was
that.
big enough to I don't know how much of a boost my channel is going to give you, but I feel honored. Thanks for being on. And let's
Oh,
talk
well, thank
soon.
you. Let's talk soon. You
Yeah.
have a good evening, okay?
All right.
Okay.
I'll see you later.
Okay, bye.
Night.
Good night.
Set the captives free. That's what we say.
Yes, amen.